Let's now turn our attention to our other big focus tonight. 13 states, this includes Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, won't be able to buy or sell electricity at power exchanges until they pay up their dues to generators and transmission companies. Now, this is due to failure in payment of bills worth over 5,000 crore. This could essentially mean power outages in 13 states. This includes Andhra, Tamil Nadu and Madhya Pradesh. Action has been taken under a recent rule to stop discoms from sourcing power from the spot market to avoid clearing large bills from regular suppliers. Now, some states have said that they are working with the GenCos to pay their dues. The government calls it an automated process, saying it works like a household meter where unpaid dues leads to disconnection. Now, India's loss-making state-run retailers are often seen as the weakest link in the country's electricity industry, causing distress that trickles through the entire chain, from the power producers to coal suppliers and project lenders. Nearly 90% of the nation's electricity is sold through these utilities, and their liability to pay on time is seen as impending investments to modernize infrastructure and provide reliable power supply. But let me, in fact, get more perspective on this. I'm welcoming Harry Dhaul, DG Independent Power Producers Association of India, and Debashish Mishra, Leader Energy Deloitte India. Thank you both of you very much for joining us on the broadcast on this specific issue. Let's first break it down in terms of what really the issue is. And if I can come first to Debashish Mishra, if you could break it down for us.
You're muted.
Mr. Debashish Mishra, you're on mute, I think. If you could unmute yourself, please. All right, I think there seems to be an issue with that audio. Let me go across, in fact, to Harry Dhaul. Yes, Mr. Dhaul, please go ahead.
Thank you. I think it's a very important subject you picked up, but let me at the outset say that I just described this yesterday as the bulldozer moment for the power sector. I think this kind of a shock is necessary. The distribution companies, for various reasons, may not be attributable to themselves, maybe their political masters, for a long, long time, have been fooling around, not paying for electricity that they buy. And the result of that is that you had a hell of a lot of dues which have been piling up. And whenever you try and approach them to recover money for what power that you supplied them, they will create a dispute, push you into some forum of legal court or some kind of thing, so that they can turn around and tell their bosses this matter is disputed legally. And so with the result, there's nothing they can do about it, etc. Like that, they have had various technologies and strategies adopted not to pay for the power that they buy. I think this moment is extremely important, and it's a turning point for the power sector. And I want to say hats off to the government for taking this position. I think this is a very important step in sending a signal to all the distribution companies and the political masters that, listen, the time for fooling around has gone. We have to make this sector viable, and looking at the Prime Minister's vision of making sure that this sector is investable and is sound, it's become very important. I also want to say that the concerned distribution companies have turned around into such a situation that generating companies are forced to run to courts and other places to recover their dues. Now, there's a limit to how much you can keep running to courts. I would also like to say that a lot of capacity which this country needed, but we had the recent coal crisis, a lot of the capacity we needed was not there because it was lying in IBC under bankruptcy, because the discoms have not paid the management or the owners of the power plants. And the banks, which are government-owned again, are trying to recover the money from the entrepreneurs. So the result is what? The result is you're not able to get the money from the government-owned discom, and you can't pay the government-owned banks, but you're going to get hanged for it. The other important point, I think, which has arisen is, yes, you have X number of states which you barred today, but what's beautiful about this is it's a regulated policy which says the moment you don't pay your bills, you're off grid. And I think that's fantastic. I think that's going to make sure that a lot of people cough up money. And it's happening, according to my information, 4 or 5 states have already coughed up 6 months and 1 year old dues and have already paid off the generators. The last point I want to make is that it's a matter of national security. Having electricity 24/7 is a national security issue. So we have to do these kind of things to make sure that everybody's online, everybody's disciplined, and everybody honors their contractual obligations. And we stop putting loads on the legal system to try and sort out what should have been sorted out on a day-to-day basis. Let me stop there for a minute and wait for the other comments to come in.
We'll just try and reconnect with Debashish Mishra in a minute. But Mr. Dhaul, coming back to you and talking about what you said with respect to the entire space, the power sector, which has been, let's face it, under a lot of turmoil for a long time. In fact, as far as discoms are concerned, it's been a legacy issue in several aspects. Where is the gap then? Because obviously a country like India, this is one sector that you can't doubt the demand. You can't doubt the kind of expansion possibility and, to get out there and electrify the entire country, all interiors as well.
See, you need to understand every sector, every part of the power sector is competitively coming on board more or less, except the discoms. The discoms are on cost plus. So if I've spent 100 rupees, I can go to the regulator and say, excuse me, I've spent 100 rupees. Please give me my 15% rate of return that you promised me. So please allow me 115 rupees. Let me charge the consumer that through the tariff. Okay. The second part of that is not being competitively There's no incentive for these discoms to become competitive. Why should they? They're having a good time sitting around charging whatever they feel like, right? All they have to do is manage the regulatory commission in the state. So if once you're able to manage the regulatory commission in the state, you can charge, as long as you can justify it, obviously in a transparent manner, you can charge whatever you want. Now, what this does is something very interesting. You have a situation where people are asking me, it's the agricultural load which is very high, et cetera, et cetera. Now, we've done a lot of surveys and found out that the agricultural load in India, except for Haryana, Punjab, requires power only for 1,800 hours in a year out of 8,762 hours. Why? Because the monsoon takes over. All right. Now, if that's the case, then why is there such a big loss for 8,762 hours? Where is this power going? Or why is it that there are no meters now for the agricultural or the rural feeders? It's by design, because distribution companies do not want to be held accountable. If you look at the kind of opposition you've had across India from the states, the political masters do not want this particular vote bank cow to go out of their hands. And one of the very interesting things that the government has thought of and is pending, of course, the parliamentary committee in the new Electricity Act, is that if you want to do distribution in more than one state, you will not have to go to the state regulator to get a license, but to the central regulator. And therefore, if I want to distribute power in Delhi and in Madhya Pradesh and say in Rajasthan, I will get my license from the Central Electricity Regulatory Commission, which means I do not have to be worried about the political masters in those states, right? Now, this is very interesting. If you do this, then what's beginning to happen is you got over a big stumbling block, because the local discom would have always blocked you from getting that license to distribute power. The second thing which seems to be very interesting is in the new amendment of the Act, the government has tried very hard, and I must say, must compliment them again, of saying that anybody who wants to get a distribution license will be able to get it, and he'll have to be allowed to distribute power along with the other. For example, in Delhi, I could start distributing power if I had the license in the same area as the BSES Rajdhani has, for example, South Delhi particularly. So this is a very interesting phenomenon. And there was an earlier effort to de-license distribution as well. The point is, it is distribution which is the main problem in the power sector, answering your question. There are too many losses, there are too many problems happening, and it's become very difficult to stem the losses. If you go back into history, you'll find right from 2002, we've had about 4 or 5 bailout packages under various governments, which have tried to bail out the state discoms by giving them money. After 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, they're back to square one. So the point I'm trying to make is, if you want to get competitiveness, accountability, efficiency, answerability, and reasonable power, You need to bring in competition in the distribution sector.
Right. Right. Mr. Dhaul, my last question with regard to this particular situation of these 13 states being sort of cut off, what impact is that likely to have? Like you said, there are some states who've coughed up the money, but let's assume you have some states who don't really cough up the money or are not able to or gets delayed. What then becomes the impact of it?
Very nice question. Some of the states, see, the best way to figure out whether it works or not is 4, 5, 6 states have cleared 6 months and 1-year-old outstandings within 24 hours, and they're back in the system, right? So let's see. So answering your question, the taste of the pudding is there in the result. They're already back on stream. Okay, for them, being able to buy and sell power on the exchange is very important. But you're right. There could be some states who would just overdraw power wherever they need it and behave in an indisciplined manner and bypass the system. But then that is also a temporary fix. It's not going to get sorted out. They can't do that forever. And, there will be all kinds of issues that are coming up. But I must say it's a damn good idea that the distribution companies, which have been fooling around right from 2003, the inception of the new act, and not paying for power that they're buying under some various excuses, will now have to think about ways and means to pay. Lastly, I want to say is, it's all right to say that, the political masters are asking you to give freebies and do this and do that. But the political masters, if you read the act carefully, the original act, it says it has to be something which is approved in the state budget every year. And so therefore, there are some states like Maharashtra and others where they do get paid the compensation for the subsidy that they're supposed to have given. But still, there is a gap. And that gap will get fixed by this kind of a problem, where you are being now, see, it's not very important just to ban them from the transaction. It's also very important to put them under a magnifying glass. Now everybody knows, like you put it on TV, that X state or Y state is in default. And that's not good. That's not good for the consumers and the general public to know. And I think it's not very good for their own reputation. So there is an accountability which is going to come in. And I think the result is there for you to see. A lot of the states start paying up.
All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Mr. Dhaul, for joining us and putting that into perspective with regard to this extremely important issue.